On a recent diving excursion in the Cayman Islands, our group was guided through 2 swim-throughs, and while the experience was quite enjoyable and nothing negative occurred, there has been a question that has been on my mind since then. Should swim-throughs be a common practice for recreational scuba diving? And if so, what conditions should be observed to make them safe? I would like to point out here in the beginning of this video that the entirety of this video is 2 unedited dive recordings. These clips are the 2 swim-throughs in their entirety. During the briefing, our dive guide asked each of us how our buoyancy was, and when he received the answers, he mentioned that we would be going through a swim-through and asked if we would be comfortable with that. Everyone said they would be comfortable with that. Some even showed excitement. In hindsight, I do not remember him giving any specifics about the swim-through, such as depth, how constricted, or length. As a new diver, my assumption was that the swim-through would have an easy, quick access to the surface, essentially a large 40 to 50 foot tunnel or something of that nature. This was not the case, and although there were absolutely no issues for any of the divers in our group, I have read about other groups in similar swim-throughs where this was not the case and panic occurred. Needless to say, panic within a confined environment is not a good thing, which can have very dire consequences. I would like to address the elephant in the room in that last statement. I made an assumption during the briefing. When our guide asked about the swim-through, I answered based upon an assumed mental model of what we would encounter. A much better approach would have been to ask clarifying questions, such as asking about the length, how constricted, depth, etc. I point this out in hopes that others can learn from my omission in this instance. It's better to ask for clarification than it is to make decisions based upon assumptions. All divers should feel comfortable asking questions during the briefing on every dive. It's the only way we can gain the appropriate information to make informed decisions. That stated, let's get back to the crux of my primary topic, the swim-throughs. There were actually 2 swim-throughs during our dive. We are just finishing this first swim-through, which took us approximately 1 minute 20 seconds to traverse. So I estimate that it was approximately 60 to 65 feet in length, at a depth of around 25 to 30 feet. The second swim-through clocked in at 3 minutes 35 seconds, with an estimated length of 170 to 180 feet, and a depth of around 40 to 45 feet. According to scuba agency standards, the combined distance to a surface exit should not exceed the depth for which the diver is certified. Combined distance being the depth and length needed to surface. This means 18 meters, 60 feet for an open water diver, 30 meters, 100 feet for an advanced certification, and 40 meters, 130 feet for a deep certification diver. Technical divers can take these depths even further, but this discussion will stick with recreational diving and their limits. The standards just mentioned does not bring into consideration the challenges of swim-throughs and buoyancy control, the calm demeanor needed to safely travel from one side to the other, and what such. As mentioned earlier, everyone in our group stated that their buoyancy was good, and from my observations, no one had any issues. So this group's buoyancy was sufficient, as were their demeanors. Thankfully, no one within our group suffered any panic issues during our swim-throughs. Looking at agency standards again, the argument could be made that our first swim-through fell within the acceptable agency limits if all divers were advanced open water or greater, given the agency definition of combining depth and distance, since the combined distance would be around 85 to 100 feet. The second swim-through, measuring in excess of 200 to 225 feet, however, pushes more into the realm of cavern diving, which requires a more advanced certification level. Cavern diving is very different from open water diving. It requires advanced learning and training. This training prepares the diver for restricted environments they will encounter within a cavern setting. I have rudimentary knowledge of cavern diving, which should make it abundantly apparent that I am not a certified cavern diver. For that matter, I seriously doubt anyone on this dive had such a certification. I would also like to point out that there is a lot more about cavern diving that I don't know than the minuscule bits that I do know. And what I do know makes me think that the longer swim through technically should not have been done by our group, as it falls within the realm of cavern diving. At this point, I'm sure you'll be wondering why I'm so concerned with these things, as it's apparent that nothing negative occurred during our dive, as I've stated so several times so far. My concern comes from the instance when, not if, something does go wrong and panic occurs or worse. And while swim-throughs might be an accepted practice, that does not mean that they're all okay. What is occurring here is a normalization of deviance. The agencies have standards which address swim-throughs, and common practices have deviated from those standards. Each successful deviation imparts a confidence that it is okay to ignore the standard more and more, and it's entirely possible that there will be continued deviation without incident, but it's also possible that eventually there will be an instance with negative consequences. A secondary negative consequence of this normalization of deviance is that it imparts a sense of achievement upon the divers that successfully complete the dive. They did so once, and so can do it again later without incident. I'd like to suggest that as an industry, we should better observe and remain within the industry standards of combined depth. Swim-throughs are not a bad or dangerous thing. We just need to be careful and stay within our training limits.